For years, the anxiety among Roger Waters and Richard Wright boiled underneath the surface, leaving enthusiasts to piece together what befell. Sure, Pink Floyd's tune and their indicates are legendary. Thoughts below. However, behind all that, it was like looking a soap opera spread. Behind many of their iconic tracks, Roger Waters breaks his silence, pulling lower back the curtain on one in all rock history's maximum charming and complex relationships. Who is responsible, Waters or Wright? The real story may make you reconsider the whole idea you knew approximately 5 minutes ago as total crap. Let's find out from a guy named Thomas Character. It wasn't just back in 1979, Pink Floyd become at the pinnacle of the music global. They had been deep into developing The Wall, an ambitious album that might emerge as being one of the most mythical concept information in records. But even as the music became groundbreaking, the vibes in the band had been less assumed, much less harmonious. Creative clashes, power struggles, double check, and boiling feuds that made a Thanksgiving dinner argument look tame. At the heart of all this drama had been Roger Waters and Richard Wright. Roger turned into the band's fiery frontman with the take-no-prisoners method to creativity, whilst Richard was the quiet genius whose keyboard magic gave Pink Floyd its signature dreamy sound. You ought to say they were like oil and water, or maybe more like espresso and orange juice, both extraordinary of their way, but horrible while combined. Looking returned now, Roger Waters has unfolded approximately the once rocky years, and let's say it wasn't all hugs and handshakes. The anxiety among him and Wright wasn't just about tune, it became personal and left an everlasting dent in Pink Floyd's story. But howdy, what is a rock band without a bit of chaos, right? In their early days, although, became all approximately teamwork. Wright become a powerhouse, shaping Pink Floyd's airy experimental sound. His keyboard paintings on songs like Us and Them and The Great Gig Inside the Sky changed into natural magic. So correct you will suppose he had a right-away line to every other dimension? Albums like The Dark Side of the Moon and Wish You Were Here didn't simply promote thousands and thousands, they had become cultural landmarks. And a large chunk of that achievement became way to Wright's ability to make music that felt like floating via area. But by using the mid-1970s, things began to shift. Roger Waters wasn't just steering the delivery, he changed into almost constructing the boat, mapping the path and telling anyone else to row more difficult. His imaginative and prescient for Pink Floyd become laser focused, which turned into brilliant for the tune, but not for band morale. Being the relaxed, introspective guy he was, Wright didn't exactly mesh with Roger's my way or the highway vibe. By the time they recorded Animals in 1977, the cracks of their chording weren't simply displaying, they had been full-on fault strains. Wright's contributions had been increasingly sidelined, and the tension among him and Waters turned into approximately as subtle as a drum solo at 3 a.m. in a quiet neighborhood. Waters' obsession with manipulate wasn't only a persona quirk, a full-time job. As he took over the innovative procedure, Wright's contributions commenced to decrease. To make topics worse, Wright's quiet nature and reluctance to ward off made matters awkward. Just like the pal in a group project who does their part but does not argue when a person else takes all the credit score. For Wright, Waters' dominance wasn't simply annoying, it became like seeking to breathe in a room where a person else continues hogging all of the air. By the time the band commenced operating on The Wall, their tensions had been boiling. Waters had huge plans for The Wall. He desired it to be a soul-bearing dive into alienation, isolation, and intellectual turmoil. Sounds amusing. He also demanded nothing much less than perfection from every person else. But it was like seeking to run a marathon with a sprained ankle for Wright, who was already combating private problems and a confidence crisis. By no means one to sugarcoat things, accused Wright of not pulling his weight, and known his efforts insufficient, The arguments were given so heated that the relaxation of the band had to step in like referees. However, it failed to help a good deal. Waters sooner or later dropped the final "it's him or me" card. Wright had to depart or the wall would not happen. Backed into a corner, Wright agreed to step down as a full-time member, and its live shows, however most effective as a session musician, for someone who had been one of these vital a part of the band, it was like getting demoted from quarterback to water boy. Later in the 70s, the band dropped its members, with Rosemary as the villain resistance coordinator, and this was a drama. It wasn't just humiliating professionally, it hit him profoundly, in my opinion. Meanwhile, Waters tightened his grip on Pink Floyd, turning the band into his innovative playground. After leaving, Wright attempted to move solo together with his album Wet Dream, and full of his signature melodic style. However, it didn't exactly set the charts on Hearth. Critics gave it a lukewarm shrug, and sales have been, let's say, they were not first rate. If the album had been a party, it would have had been one where handiest a handful of people showed up and all of them left early. This changed into every other blow to his self-assurance for Wright, who was already feeling down. Pink Floyd moved on without Wright. However, the gap he left turned into importance. Their 1983 album, The Final Cut, turned into a Roger Waters solo act with backup. It was dark, moody, and lacking the ethereal spark Wright had usually delivered. Fans and critics alike weren't thrilled, lamenting that magic wasn't the identical. However, the band decided to hold their unresolved drama inside the back seat. As for Wright, existence failed to exactly get more viable. His marriage fell aside, and he discovered himself grappling with substance abuse. Fame and being driven out of the band he helped create left him feeling misplaced. He got kicked out of the club he helped build and had to watch anyone else's celebration without him. For years he struggled to find his footing, scuffling with isolation and inner demons. By 1985, Richard Wright became just like the youngster watching his buddies play from the bench. Pink Floyd became transferring on without him. And then, in a dramatic twist, Roger Waters decided to give up after his battles with David Gilmour and Nick Mason. It changed into like a circle of relatives feud, wherein the loudest sibling storms out. Waters' departure shook matters up, leaving Gilmour to step in as the de facto leader. And wager what Gilmour did? He known as Wright again. But Wright wasn't reinstated as a full member proper away. He returned as a session musician, which became Pink Floyd's model of announcing, let's examine how this is going. It's no longer exactly a heat hug. However, progress is progress. As they labored on a temporary lapse of reason, Wright speedy reminded all and sundry why they wished him. His keyboards breathed lifestyles into tracks like Sorrow and Learning to Fly. They speed out to the bass line, the line that reaches out to the world, Finer and Learning to Fly. And started pronouncing, sure, it really is the Pink Floyd we realize. It was clean. Wright turned into extra than a supporting act. He was a headliner. Wright's courting with Gilmour and Mason commenced to heal. Even supposing matters with Waters stayed awkward. Imagine bumping into an ex at a celebration. Eventually, even Waters, in his famously stubborn way, admitted Wright had been a central part of Pink Floyd's magic. It changed into a bittersweet second for Wright, like prevailing in a award, however forgetting to thank the folks that stuck by using you. Still, he became again in which he belonged. If you believe you studied Wright became the only man or woman Waters had a problem with, you should prevent and think once more that he blessed his death that evening, like you believe you studied Wright became the only man or woman Waters had a problem with. You should believe you studied Wright became the only man or woman Waters had a problem with. You should believe you studied Wright became the only man or woman Waters had a. Before diving into the drama, permits speak about Roger. Roger's journey is a tale in itself. Roger became the younger of boys, born in Great Bookham, Surrey in 1943. His dad, Eric Fletcher Waters, turned into a school teacher, a devout Christian, and a member of the Communist Party. Eric started out as a pacifist throughout World War II and worked as an ambulance motif force for the duration of the Blitz. But he finally joined the army and tragically misplaced his existence and struggle when Roger was just 5 months vintage. The struggle was just 5 months vintage. That loss fashioned Roger's lifestyles and his track. His work with Pink Floyd is complete of topics of conflict and loss, and when you listen to backstory, it hits even more difficult. After Eric's demise, Roger's mom Mary moved the own family to Cambridge and raised her 2 boys independently. Roger's earliest reminiscence, the VJ Day celebrations, marked the quit of World War II, and even as a kid he became already grappling with some heavy realities about struggle and its effect. Roger went to Morley Memorial Junior School and Cambridge High School for boys. This is in which he met Syd Barrett, who would later come to be Pink Floyd's unique frontman. Oh, and David Gilmour? He lived close by, however went to a exclusive school. The universe turned into putting in the closing rock band reunion earlier than everyone knew it. By 15, Roger became already making waves. He became chairman of the Cambridge Youth Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament and designed their posters. Let's face it, activist Roger turned into warming up. But whilst triumphing at activism and sports activities, he beaten it in rugby and cricket. He wasn't exactly loving faculty. He known as it oppressive, and said the teachers were bullies. Honestly, the only factor he loved, approximately, it became the sports. 1962, Roger moved to London to have a look at structure at Regent Street Polytechnic. Architecture for a future rock superstar? What a massive plot twist. Aptitude checks stated he'd be good at it. He'd even taken into consideration mechanical engineering before selecting architecture. At faculty, he met Nick Mason and Richard Wright, and the trio became rapid friends. By 1963, Roger and Nick had sufficient of their research and determined to recognition on track. They moved right into a flat collectively and began jamming with Richard. They known as themselves Sigma 6 and performed at personal events, but when some bandmates left, they added in Syd Barrett and Bob Close. With Roger switching to bass, the band had tempted out a group of names: the Abdabs, Leonard's Lodgers, and the T-Set. The T-Set. Finally, in 1966, they settled on Pink Floyd, inspired by blues musicians Pink Anderson and Floyd Council. In 1967, Pink Floyd changed into On Fireplace, with Syd Barrett main the price. Their debut album, The Piper on the Gates of Dawn, turned into a masterpiece. But Syd's mental health started out to say no, and his erratic conduct made it impossible for him to maintain going. In 1968, the band made the hard choice to element ways with him. It changed into heartbreaking, however they needed to pass forward. Pink Floyd entered a brand new chapter with a brand new supervisor and a renewed attention. And as history suggests, they didn't simply survive, they thrived. The relaxation become rock legend. The band changed into In a Pickle when Syd Barrett left Pink Floyd in 1968. They wished someone to step in and fill the massive, innovative hole Barrett left behind. Then David Gilmour came into the photo. Smooth guitar capabilities, angelic voice, and a gentle potential to mixture into the chaos. But allows now not kid ourselves. While Gilmour saved matters musically on Factor, Roger Waters grabbed the guidance wheel and didn't just take over, he floored it. Waters have become the band's bossy huge brother, main Pink Floyd into his global of deep, political, and philosophical subject matters. Forget Barrett's whimsical, trippy vibes, Waters had larger fish to fry. In 1970, he even teamed up with Ron Geeson to make Music from the Body, a soundtrack that protected actual body sounds. Basically, it's like the unique coterie, however, with a bit more Roger Waters expertise sprinkled in. And in October 2023, he took this version on the road, playing special shows at the London Palladium. These weren't simply concert events, they have been impossibility for Waters on the entirety, From Julian Assange's state of affairs to readings from his unpublished memoir. It's like a concert, lecture, and remedy consultation. So Roger Waters is still rocking nonetheless, thinking big, and preserving us all on our toes with his tune and ideas. The man's no longer slowing down every time quickly. And let's be sincere, he in all likelihood by no means will.